Okay, so now, suppose we want to estimate the average weight of an adult male in DeKalb County, Georgia. They're voting Republican. I know people from there, DeKalb. We drew a random sample of 1,000 men from, I have relatives that live in Kennesaw, Georgia. There's a law in the book that in Kennesaw, Georgia, that requires gun ownership. Homeowners are required to own a gun. They don't enforce it. That's why it's never gone before the Supreme. You can look that up. It's true. They don't enforce it, so it hasn't been an issue that's gone up before the Supreme Court or anything like that. But they literally have a law that requires gun. That's where we're talking about here. Okay, so at any rate, and there's a bunch of the DeVito relatives living down there. We draw a random sample of 1,000 men from a population of 1,000,000 men and weigh them. We find that the average man in our sample weighs 180 pounds. Sample is very large. We're going to assume for the purposes of analysis that the standard deviation of population sigma is the same as the standard deviation of this sample, which was 30 pounds. That's something that Levi told us was okay. Very large sample size, over 300. We can do that. In fact, we could do that even if the original population wasn't perfectly normal, because the sample size is just so large. And the central limit theorem tells us that the sample means will be, with a large sample like that, sample means will be normally distributed, even if the population isn't. Okay, so what do we want to know? What's the 95% confidence interval for the average weight of a man in DeKalb County? Well, there's a lot of words in there, but if we parse it down to the basics, we know our sample mean is 180 x bar. We know our sigma is 30, so we can use sigma. We can use a z-score here, right? So 30 divided by the square root of 1,000 would be our standard error, and we would just set up a confidence interval 180 plus or minus 30 times 1.96, 30 over the square root of 1,000 times 1.96, and subtract that to the 180, and we'd have our confidence interval. The trick here is that the sample, even though we don't know the population standard deviation, we don't have to use a t-score because the sample size